Have you ever asked this question? How do I know when it's God who's speaking to me? So many people have asked this question, including myself, that I just figured, why not go directly to the man who speaks on this in his word and see if I can find an answer. So let's get into it. All right, so the verse that I want to refer to is John 10:27, which says, and this is Jesus speaking, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." So for context, in Jerusalem, they were having the Feast of Dedication, and Jesus was there. So these Jews basically go up to Jesus and say, if you're the Christ, why don't you just tell us straight up? To which Jesus is saying, I already have, you're just not believing me because you don't understand what I'm saying. All throughout scripture, it's recorded that Jesus was answering questions with other questions or parables, never really giving a straight answer, kind of giving it in a way that if you knew, you knew. If you understood, you understood. I believe that he did this to wean out the people that knew of Jesus versus the people who knew Jesus. Let's play a game. If I told you that I would give you $1 million and all you had to do was get the answer right to the question that I'm about to ask you, tell me if you think you'd win the money. Okay, so here's a scenario. I'm gonna have one of your family members call you at random, and we're gonna put it on speaker, and you're not gonna know who's calling. And they're gonna say, hi, your name, and ask you a question, and then hang up. And my question to you is, who just called? Do you think you would win the money? Of course you would win the money. You know the voice of the family member calling you without them ever having to say, hey, it's blank, and this is why I'm calling. You know their voice because of the time you spent with them. You know the question they would ask. You know how they would ask the question. All of the things that go into making all of our voices unique, you would be able to distinguish that because of the time that you've spent with that person. In the same way, we can know when Jesus is talking to us by knowing the sound of his voice. Okay, that's great, but how do we increase the ability to know when it's Jesus who's speaking to us? By spending more time with him. Get in the word, spend time with him, walk with him, talk with him, pray with him. Just be with Jesus and you'll understand his voice so much clearer. So why is Jesus always answering questions with questions or questions with parables? Because he doesn't want to give us the answer straight up because it doesn't take faith that way. It also won't really take relationship because we won't have to be able to read between the lines to really understand what he's actually saying. Let me put it like this to you. Have you ever been in an uncomfortable position where maybe people are doing things you don't want to do or they're talking about things you don't want to talk about? So you have to call someone that really understands you and then you can speak to them in code and then they'll pick you up or give you an excuse to get out of there or some way just gets you out of the position that you're in without you having to actually say, hey, get me out of here. That's what Jesus is doing throughout scripture. He's giving us the answers between the lines without actually telling us, because by speaking that way, Jesus is now able to filter out the people who actually want a deep connection and relationship with him. So the whole point of this video is to basically say, if you want to be able to distinguish God's voice easily, we need to spend more time with him. That way, when he calls us and it gets put on speaker and we don't know who's calling, but he starts speaking, we know it's God. And we know that because of the relationship and time we've spent with him.